What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension, a Twilight Zone podcast.
Holy wrong podcast, Batman.
Wait, what? Why are you guys dressed as Batman? What is going on here?
I am vengeance.
Jacob's about ready to lose his shit. No, it's a joke. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about fish laws, so I mean, it's that type of podcast, No, in all seriousness, as you can see in this round table of discussion, we are going to talk about Batman. We are the Fifth Dimension podcast usually, but today we're talking about something else. But as always, like I said, we are a Fifth Dimension podcast. We're talking about Batman in a spoiler form, so beware of spoilers. My name is Nick. I am the host of this, of this podcast roundtable. I'm here with Triv and Jacob, who are my co-hosts on the Fifth Dimension podcast. But as always, if you like the content on my channel, which is of course Movie Emporium, you can find me at, of course, Movie Emporium on YouTube. So Batman, The Batman is a movie that is releasing on March 4th. It is a movie that, as you've seen from the reviews, has been getting quite a decent amount of good reviews, I would say. It's a movie that is, pretty anticipated. It was most people's anticipated movie of the year for the most part. I don't know about Triv and Jacob, but I asked them on because one, they're awesome people to talk to. Like I said, we talk every week about Twilight Zone stuff, but they also actually both saw The Batman last night, which was Wednesday, March 1st. And Triv, who usually never gets a chance to go see
Tuesday.
Like new movies. What's that?
Tuesday.
What did I say?
Today's Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday, March 1st, because apparently I don't know days anymore. Fucking banks and killing me and shit. Anyways, Jacob usually sees a lot of new movies, as usual. He goes to the movie theater. But Triv, I know you personally, you don't go see a lot of movies in the theater because you never get a chance to. But The Batman was a film I'm pretty sure both of you guys were like, because they put out tickets for it on March 1st. But what was I'll go to you, Triv, first. What was your anticipation for this film? Welcome, by the way, guys. I always say that. Welcome. Yeah, you guys know who you are. But what was your anticipation for this movie? I mean, I know you went to see it because you were able to, but were you anticipating this film at all? Was this something that you were excited for? Like, did you even care? Did you just want to be part of the water cooler crowd? Like, where were you standing on this?
I'm a big superhero fan. I've watched all the Batman movies, so I do have a love of these movies and such. The anticipation for me was, I guess, like any new movie coming out, like there's the hype and the buildup, and being in the movie community, I think it's kind of hard to not get hyped over things like this, at least in some way, shape, or form. And especially since it's like kind of like the Joker movie a couple years ago, it's something that isn't Snyderverse, and that's kind of been a lot of what we've had the past couple of years. So yeah. I was pretty excited for this. I mean, Matt Reeves is a great director. I was interested to see what Robert Pattinson did with this, and the rest of the cast was pretty stacked, so it looked really good. I didn't go out of my way to look for trailers for it or information, but yeah, I definitely was excited to see it.
And what about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I was. This is probably, well, I can't say it's my most anticipated movie of 2022. That comes out at the end of the year, but it is definitely in the top 3, maybe even number 2. It was one of my top anticipated films of the year. Batman is probably my favorite superhero, has been since I was a kid. So I've been into all the Batman movies that have come out. I've liked, at least on some level, all of them. I've enjoyed them to a degree. I've liked all the different iterations of Batman we've gotten, I say liked. When it comes into those like mid 90s ones, that's a different story. Yeah. But I've enjoyed Batman. He's always been my favorite. I really like Robert Pattinson ever since after Twilight. Everything he's done, I think, has been just fantastic. And the guy is like an awesome actor, and he's finally getting back into like the mainstream Hollywood scene after Twilight, because he really hasn't done like a big, huge Hollywood, big blockbuster franchise movie since then. And he's getting back into it, and I'm hoping that maybe hopefully he can get his name back out there and people can start like mainstream seeing that he's a great actor. So yeah, I was looking forward to that. Matt Reeves, like Triv said, is a fantastic director. The guy has not made a bad movie up to this point. He made the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I love those movies and everything he's done prior to that. And so yeah, the deck was stacked for this one for me. I mean, yeah, it had a lot of issues running up to it, and it was in production for fucking ever. So I was kind of worried about that. But beyond that, everything else was looking good. And I was really just hoping that it was going to be, you know, the Batman and not, you know, Buttman or something. So which we'll get
There's
into.
I don't know if you watch Chris Stuckman's review at all, but he has a shirt that is from Dragon Ball Z and it says Bad Man. It has I think one of the Dragon Ball Z characters holding up a weight, but I thought that was kind of funny as a t-shirt. But I won't get into too much of what I thought. Like I said, I've been anticipating this movie since I heard about it with Matt Reeves, and originally it was supposed to be a Ben Affleck movie, but when Robert Pattinson was brought on board, I'm like, this guy's awesome. I love him. He's an actor that, you know, yes, he was in Twilight, and yes, that movies were terrible, but there is promise. You know, we see Kristen Stewart get an Oscar nomination, so there is promise from these actors outside of just a shitty franchise. But my overall like take on this movie, I've already kind of talked about it. You know, it's like 16 minutes long or whatever. But I really love this movie. I'm sure Jacob has some of the same problems I have, but I had problems like the third act and stuff like that. And Jacob, I know you put out a review for it, but if you want to like say what you thought of the movie, just as a form of review, you don't have to go for very long, you know, because I know you have a pretty lengthy review yourself. So, but what do you think of the movies? And watch his review. By the way. Yes.
Yeah, please
Check
do.
it out.
Like I said, I was really hyped for this movie. Went in there. I had heard everybody saying it was great, and you know, I hadn't heard anybody say anything bad about it, really negative about it.
Yeah.
I tried to stay away from other people's reviews as much as possible before seeing it and shooting my own, so I'm not.
Yeah, fair enough.
But you can't get away from it right now. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Through tweets, and if you're online at all, then you hear something about it. So I'd heard good things about it, and I tried not to be too hyped. I was already hyped, but I didn't want to get too hyped because last time I did that was The Green Knight, and that didn't turn out well for me. Everybody loved that movie, and I fucking hated it. But so I go in there, and the first few minutes of this movie, it had me, man. That shit was like as soon as, I mean, that whole part in the beginning with where the Riddler is watching the guy, and when he shows up and how he just like, it had like not a horror movie vibe. It was like almost like Seven. Yeah, it was totally very much like Seven with a superhero. Well, not a superhero, but a hero. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. And then it just went from there. And I kind of loved this movie. I mean, if you watch my review, you'll see that I gave it my highest rating. This was an absolutely awesome movie. I could not find many flaws with it at all. I had a comment. I won't call it a flaw. We'll get to that in a second. But I thought the performances were great. I thought everybody was perfectly cast, even though at first it was like, really? I love Robert Pattinson, but even when they named him as Batman, I was like, that's interesting. But if you look at the Batman franchise over the years, all the way back to the 80s with the 89 Batman, every single iteration of Batman has those weird casting choices that everybody thinks are weird, like who picked that, and then they end up being amazing. Jack Nicholson is the Joker. People were kind of like, oh, we love Jack Nicholson, I'm sure he'll be good, but the Joker, okay, sure. But like Michael Keaton, everybody hated that until that movie came out. Everybody was like, you put Mr. Mom as Batman, what the hell? And he was awesome. I mean, a lot of people still say he is their favorite Batman. He's definitely one of mine. I think Christian Bale thing, that I don't think anybody had a problem with that, but Heath Ledger as the Joker, you remember all the talk about that before that movie came out? And who's the de facto Joker now? And then you have like, you know, this one with Robert Pattinson. I'm sure there's been other issues, you know, Jared Leto and all that, but you know, we've Ben Affleck is Batman. People were kind of like, okay. So, you know, even I was kind of like, Robert Pattinson, I don't know, but man, the guy killed it. And I've noticed, I mentioned in my review, people have had issue with, nobody said he's bad, but everybody's like, oh, he's kind of one note. There's no difference between his Batman and his Bruce Wayne, and we usually get that. But I think that was the point. He's not to that point yet. He's still young and fresh to this. So there is no difference between the two. For him, it's just Batman. He didn't give a shit about Bruce Wayne. He's like, I don't, and he even says it in the movie. It comes up. He's like, I don't care about all that. I care about this part of my life right now. Screw all that.
Yeah.
He's basically Rorschach if you think about it.
Oh yeah, he kind of is.
From Watchmen.
Respect.
Yeah, and I loved and we'll get into it, but the third act was where I think you mentioned it too, Nick. You had said that you had some issues with the third act.
Yeah,
I didn't have an issue with the third act so much as when the third act there is an ending to the movie, more or less. I felt like it seems like this is the end, and it keeps going. And I did when it started kept going. I was kind of like, okay, I feel like it should have already ended. Is this where they're going to screw the pooch? And but then it comes back around, and at first it was weird. That's what it was. I didn't hate it or anything, but it was just odd. I was like, I feel like the movie's supposed to be over, and it keeps going, but where it goes and what it means to the story, I did like eventually, because I didn't see it at first, but the growth that character has and he needed to get to be the Batman that we know needed to happen in the end part of that movie. That's when all that happened. Could they put that in another part of the movie? Maybe, I don't know. But that's when it happened, was that that whole end part was about Batman's growth into becoming the Batman that we know, and not fucking Mr. Anger beat the fuck out of everybody just because I hate the world. So I really enjoyed the movie, and it had a fucking amazing Batmobile. Which I'm sure
it was so cool,
dude. That was like a hard on in its own right, man. No, I was gonna say,
Jesus Christ, I love that car.
The rumble in the theater, like just that.
Sound design in this movie is amazing. It
boots
hits you.
Oh god,
I gotta admit,
walking out of the shadows.
I got to see the press screening of this, and then I got to see what I thought was going to be an IMAX version where Robert Pattinson showed up. No, it was just from regular theaters, so I need to go see it in IMAX. But the thing I was going to say, and it's
not shot in IMAX.
No, which is
I saw it in IMAX last night.
Yeah, I did
and
too.
I was thinking that while I was watching it, and I was like, I don't feel like IMAX is really doing anything for this. Now, I mean, it may have been one of those cases where certain scenes were in IMAX, but I just kind of like faded into the movie. Grabbed me that much, I wasn't paying attention anymore. And maybe some scenes went to IMAX, and I just didn't notice it. I usually notice that aspect ratio change. I never noticed it. Now the movie's really dark. Like not in tone,
right? It's not bad dark, because someone asked me about the dark aspect of it, and it's like, no, it is dark. Everything takes place at night, but it's not like one of those movies where it's you can't make out what's going on.
Yeah, it's lit correctly. It's just, but I mean, seeing this, I could see how maybe a slight aspect ratio change could get away from you
that way,
because it is so dark that like if it changed aspect ratios real quick and it was in a dark scene, I might not notice it. So it may have had some IMAX scenes, but really I gotta say I don't really see the point. The IMAX did not do anything for me for this movie. It wasn't full screen the whole time or anything.
That's the funny thing. Like when you go see a Marvel, I hate to go to Marvel because Marvel's Marvel, but a lot of the times they'll either up frame their movies into IMAX so it's full screen, or they're already shot in IMAX. And I kind of, especially when he jumps off the building with the what kind of suit is that?
It's a
squirrel suit. Yeah, that would have been cool in IMAX. But the thing I was gonna say was you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's when Paul Dano's Riddler is in Arkham Gate or Arkham Prison or whatever. That would have been a cool stinger. Like if you cut that out of the movie and then put it at the end credit sequence, I think that would have worked. I think it's a cool sequence. It actually helps the movie a lot, but I think that would have been a cool stinger, which everybody would have fucking lost it. I'm sure people lost their mind anyways, but it was a weird moment where it was like, oh, okay, this could have been like an end credit sequence to kind of, really hype up the audience instead they got a buy and then
I appreciated that they didn't, honestly. Like they
really,
to some extent,
maybe
just to separate themselves. I think you almost have to. Like DC has been trying to find their groove to separate themselves, but still maintain the same level as Marvel since they've started doing movies under that studio. I think you have to have something to differentiate, and I don't know. That's me.
Yeah,
and plus everybody does credit sequences.
Everybody does stingers now.
I know.
But I do wonder if maybe they thought that, because it does seem like a scene that could definitely have been just ripped out of the movie and put at the end credits, and the movie would not really be any different besides that reveal there. But it seems like it does seem like a stinger. I wonder when they shoot these stingers though like this, or when they shoot these scenes and they're deciding, I wonder if they got to like think, hey, do we want to put this at the after the credits, or what are the chances in our movie that people are going to hang around after the credits?
Right.
I wonder if they had those talks. It's like, does it just make more sense? Is this information we just gotta have in the movie that we really want people to know? And if that's the case, how much are we going to lose by people like waiting till the end of the credits? How many people are going to leave the theater? Or so do we just want to include it in the movie? And I think that's kind of why we've gotten into like mid-credit sequences and stuff now too, because sometimes they're afraid, oh, we want this information in there, but we're going to lose a certain percentage of people that walk out of the theater. I'm curious about like how they figure that stuff out. And I think Triv's got a really good point there too. Differentiate. Don't be Marvel. Stop. Don't. And this movie's not trying to be Marvel at all. But they have in the past tried to look Justice League. They've tried to be the MCU. Don't do that. Be your own thing. Because DC is at its best. It's at its worst when it's trying to be something it's not. It's at its best when it's just trying to do DC. And that's when we get the Dark Knight, the Batman. I know you didn't care for it, but Zack Snyder's Justice League. When it does its own thing, that's when it is unique. That's when it stands out. That's when they do their best.
Right.
I will say too, just in terms of like the credit scene, like having sat through a lot of Marvel movies, you see people like Googling on their phone if there is a sequence, and
who is that?
I do it.
I do it too.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't necessarily go in like if it's just to see like if there's one or like if it's just a mid credit, or if it's mid credit and after credits. And some people just, and not to say all the people don't need to be thanked, but I mean, put mildly, superhero movie credits are crazy long. So you got someone waiting 10 minutes. You're gonna have to have something really hardcore to like, only hardcore people will stay until the very end. It kind of, I don't know. I guess that's not really a point one way or the other, but it's just people will stay if there are credits. If there's not, there are very few people that will stay till the end.
Yeah, I Google that shit every time. I don't look to see what it is. I just look to see, is there one? I mean, some movies, if it's a Marvel movie, I know there's going to be one. But sometimes I'm like, because I got to see so many movies lately. I haven't, but usually I go see so many movies that I don't want to hang around in another credit sequence if I don't have to, especially if it's going to be a 10-minute long credit sequence. So I'm like, is there an end credit scene in this movie? No. All right, I'm out. If there is, I just say, okay, close it, and I wait and I watch it. Yep. And also to your point, there's been so many Marvel end credit scenes that we've sat there in anticipation for what the end credit scene will be, and then it ends up being some people eating something fucking shawarma at a restaurant, and you're just like, I waited all that time for that. And
I actually liked that one. So the others,
I like the idea behind it, but I mean, you know what I mean? You wait around for some big reveal, and then it's like nothing, and you're just like, okay, I waited for that. I could have waited till video for that and just fast forwarded it. But
yeah, exactly.
I agree. Marvel has kind of conditioned everyone to fucking stay. And if you're like me, I have a bad bladder, and unfortunately, I had to watch 2 screenings to get the whole entire movie of the Batman because I did have to leave a couple times. And then I sat through the credits. I'm like, come on, bathroom. Anyways, so. Triv, I know you talked a little bit about the Batman already, but like, what was your overall thoughts, your overall feeling on the film as somebody who, like you said, you really weren't really watching the trailers. What overall did you think of it?
I loved it. I thought it was great. You can look at this and see a lot of Dark Knight, but in a more, not that Dark Knight wasn't grounded, but this kind of took it to like a bedrock level. The city had no frills. It was New York or Chicago or LA or whatever. Everything that was going on, like you could, 100%. Like even just this, like you say, the sound design was incredible. Like they didn't pull punches as far as making it realistic. And the way that the characters went, like the Riddler's character, he follows through this series. It's not just him. He's got this social media following. He's got, these people that are following up with him. He had the whole plan thing, you saw all of his journey, and it wasn't just a one-off and done. It was I started this thing, I followed through, and look, I got people that are following me and following what I do. And he was following what Batman did. And I love that arc. I think that is so great. Like you get the sense of time. with everything that goes on with this. It's not just set in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. It's what I think what most is amazing about this film and what a lot of films don't do, and this movie opens up Warner Brothers logo, DC, like no DC animation. Then it says the Batman. Then it like literally fucking straight into a shot of Edward Nashton or the Riddler looking through his binoculars at I think it was it the DA or the mayor of Gotham or whoever it was. It was the mayor, right? And why I say that is because this film has no first act. It literally jumps into, you have to somewhat know who the Batman is. You have to somewhat know who Bruce Wayne is. The Riddler, his story kind of is different a lot of times than what we are recognized from the Riddler. We're so used to Jim Carrey's Riddler, but you got to agree, there's literally, it just shoots you fucking into the movie, doesn't even let you breathe, and just goes straight forward. And there's no explanation of Gotham. There's no explanation of the Batman outside of the police hate him and the criminals are scared of him. And then you have this guy named the Riddler who just is starting to kill public figures because of this thing called renewal, the package
fund.
that Wayne, Thomas Wayne put together. And that's why I think the movie works so well, is Matt Reeves is not holding your hand. He's like, you're going to jump in this story deep into the ocean and you just kind of have to run with it. It does give you small bits and pieces, but Alfred's character is barely in this movie, and you just kind of know it's Alfred, and you kind of know Gordon works for the police force, and it's probably one of the best chemistry of Alfred, of Jim Gordon and Batman I've ever seen in a Batman movie. But I don't know what you guys think about that. Like I said, it's pretty ingenious how it just kind of jumps you straight into the movie without even having a first act. There's no death of the Wayne parents and stuff like that.
We do kind of get that with sorry, we do kind of get that with like Superman or Spider-Man, like the most recent trilogy. Not that they don't, true. I just mean that they didn't jump you into it like the middle of the act. You see, you're with the web crawler, but you don't get the whole Uncle Ben story. I think we're far enough on where if people are going into this movie, they're gonna have some basis in the story. And
right.
There are so many movies that they assume their audiences are dumb and just, this is Bruce Wayne, and look, here's the Batmobile and all this stuff. I love, like, that's one of the biggest things I loved about this was it just let it be. Let it build its own mythos.
Who the hell doesn't know at least the bare minimum basics of Batman's story by now? My mom, my dad, they're in their 70s. My mom's almost 80. They know the basic Batman story. Parents killed as a kid, grew up, became a vigilante. That's it. That's all you really need to know. And I mean, we don't need to see it again. We just don't. And I think Triv touched on something really good there, is movies treat their audiences like they're dumb. And it's almost becoming like a quota whenever we have in any superhero movie nowadays or hero movie, we have to have like their origin whenever we have the new version or the new person take up the new. We have to see how they got there, but it's always the same story, just slightly different. Thank you, Matt Reeves, for not giving us the same thing again and going right into it. And I also think that even if you, let's say 30 years from now, which I'm sure Batman will still be big then, but let's say somebody, one of our kids or grandkids or whatever doesn't know anything about Batman and they sit down and watch this movie, I feel like they could still get it. It does drop little things as the movie goes. It does what superhero movies are very, very basic in their storytelling a lot of the time. They put everything out there for you to see. It's like, this happens because of this. This happens, but there's not like a lot of ambiguity. There's not a lot of like stuff left to the imagination. And I feel like this movie told a story like a quote unquote regular movie would usually. You had these things that you're kind of like, even if you didn't know who Batman, you're like, okay, who is this guy? Why's this guy dressed up like a bat? And as it goes, you hear like the mayor candidate Rial or whatever her name was. She says, we've got a mass vigilante just running the streets. And then you have Robert Pattinson's voiceover where he's like, I've been doing this for 2 years because this city is infected. It's shit. I don't even know if I'm doing any good. And I mean, that you don't really need much more explanation. As things go on, you find out, oh, okay, his parents were murdered. That apparently stuck with him. It does a really good job of slowly giving us this story, which works so much better because we all already know the story, but it also future proofs itself. So if people don't know the story at some time, they can watch this and pick up on it as it goes on and learn about who this character is. I thought that was great. It seemed like a real movie. I mean, whatever that is, but you know what I mean? It didn't seem like a superhero movie. It seemed like just a normal, I hate saying normal, but another genre of movie, but with a superhero in it. Yeah.
It felt like its own independent island thing. There wasn't any attachments to anything else. It just was what it was.
Yeah. It wasn't trying
nice.
to, it wasn't following this superhero or comic book movie template that we've had for so long. And I think a lot of the times we don't even recognize it. But this movie, going against that grain, I think kind of like shines a light on all these other comic book movies saying, hey, you don't have to do it that way. You can still tell a compelling story without following that tried and true template.
Yeah.
And what's also nice is Batman even says his city is effed. I mean, he knows it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's what this whole story's run through is they're trying to stop the Riddler. The Riddler is a Zodiac. He's basically as they've said in a lot of reviews, he's a Zodiac killer in essence. He's putting out riddles. He's putting out who he is. He's in modern day. So he has video technology on the internet through fringe sites and like that to get out on the web, which is what I feel like the Zodiac killer would have done. But it also shows you how you can take down a major crime boss or a major syndicate of a city. Let's say you take down a Taliban member or something like that. There's always going to be somebody that goes in his place. And the reason I say that is you look at Colin Farrell as a Penguin, which is probably the most insane thing I've ever seen when it comes to character, when it comes to actor to character, because usually you can tell who a character is just by their eyes, because their eyes are very distinct when it comes to character and when they're in makeup. Do you guys agree, one, you couldn't fucking tell that it was Colin Farrell as the Penguin? And how good was the Penguin? I mean, am I the only one that thought that, or do you guys agree that Colin Farrell is fucking awesome as a Penguin? I mean, I don't know.
I thought he was great. I guess I haven't seen a lot that Colin Farrell is in. Like, all I can think of at the moment is Phone Booth and where he was in Daredevil. And I know that's I know I've seen him in other stuff, but those are the only two that come to mind at present. But yeah, seeing
Layer Cake one.
Oh, was he?
No, that was Daniel Craig.
No worries.
In Bruges. I'm thinking of In Bruges.
You're right. You're right. I haven't seen that in forever. But yeah, between the makeup and like the voice work, there's like, he looks short. The way he was shot, he looks short. They did a great job with the design. They made him Penguin-esque, but not like, Danny DeVito Penguin where it's all bodysuit,
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody who's followed my channel for any amount of time, when I've talked about Batman and how much I like Batman and that property and how I think some of the rogues gallery of villains, I love the villains except for one, and that's the Penguin. I fucking hate the Penguin. I've always hated him. In the 1960s show, which not as much. There's certain versions of him I don't hate as much, but the one from like the 60s show, the
Burgess Meredith.
Yeah, Burgess Meredith. I love Burgess Meredith. I fucking hated him. And I hated Danny DeVito's Penguin. I thought Danny DeVito was fine. And I think that it was it fit that movie, but he was such a disgusting fuck. I hated him. But anyway, I've never cared for that character.
Yeah.
But except for the show Gotham, which has its issues, I really like that Penguin.
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job. But anyway, neither here nor there. This Penguin, though, Colin Farrell as Penguin, I really like this Penguin. And no, if I didn't know Colin Farrell was in this movie, and there's no way you could tell. He does not look like him. Eyes, face, voice, nothing. There is no Colin Farrell's not there. That's Oswald Cobblepot. That's the fucking Penguin, man. Because you stare at that picture of Penguin and you just don't, there's nothing of Colin Farrell there. That's crazy. And that's a testament to their special effects work. And I think it was all makeup. If there was any CG work,
it was all prosthetics.
I didn't see it. And also his acting abilities, because to act through all that prosthetic and make it convincing and not, I never thought prosthetics. He always looked like a somewhat deformed or scarred, but real human being. And that was great. He's an awesome Penguin.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's funny too, because like I was talking about with like you cut one head of the snake off and you have the grow back and become another head, and that's what happens at the end of this movie with Oswald Cobblepot. We have a shot of him going. He's just looking out into the sunset, but he could play. They're thinking about making a movie for one of him, like R-rated movie, but you can tell he's going to rise up in the ranks of taking over Carmine Falcone's syndicate. So that's a really cool kind of origin-esque story to the Penguin a little bit, So,
but I hope they don't do that.
Yeah,
I think they will though. That's the problem. That's the thing.
I mean, and it might be good. I know Triv, you had something to say, but it might be good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily want to see a Penguin movie, but I'd love to see the Penguin in another Batman movie. Like in a more, his role was more predominant than I thought it would be. I'd heard, he's only in the movie for a few minutes, and he may be, but he felt like his, but he felt like his presence was there quite a bit. So I felt like he was in the movie maybe a little bit more than he was. But I'd love to see him as more of a central villain in a future Batman movie, which hopefully I feel like we're probably going to get. But I don't know, an actual Penguin movie, I'm open for anything, but just ask me right off and I'm going to say, no, I don't have any interest in
it. No, I get it.
Well, that's like the Hulk, the Hulk movies were what they were, but you put Hulk in another person's movie and it's great, but their standalone is questionable if they're not done well. What I was going to say was when at the very beginning you've got the Penguin and Catwoman kind of interacting, and all I could think was like the entire plot of like the second Batman, the other 80s Batman movie.
Yeah.
With the minute, like that whole back and forth between them kind of felt like that. And I don't know, maybe that's just me projecting, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
I'm one of the more bigger proponents. I wasn't a huge fan of Zoe Kravitz in this movie. I hope they like expand upon her character, but to me personally, I felt she was a little underdeveloped. But I mean, Zoe Kravitz comes in as Catwoman, but I mean, I think you, Jacob, do you say you liked her in this movie, right? Or was it somebody else I was listening to?
I liked her. I thought, and I may have cut this out of my review because my review was 22 minutes long.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to cut it down. I had to cut a lot out, and I may have cut this part out. I can't remember exactly, but I thought that there were some things character-wise. I didn't dislike her character. I liked her character, but I thought especially closer to the end of the film, there were some kind of like, I guess for lack of a better term, like cliched decisions and things that they did with her character that I was hoping that they would have stuck with a little bit more original. But she kind of went down a road that you kind of saw coming, and there wasn't. I was like, man, I wish they had done a little bit more with that. However, what I did say was Zoe Kravitz in that character, I thought she did bring something to the role that made it more believable. I think than in lesser hands. And I'm not saying Zoe Kravitz is like the greatest actress ever. I think I don't really know her that well. Well, I don't know her, but I don't know her films that well. But here, I thought she did a really good Catwoman, this version of Catwoman. I thought she brought this one to life and gave it a believability. So when she did make these decisions that were kind of like, atypical for this character within this, in the franchise, she made it more digestible. She made it a bit more believable, and I was like, okay, I can buy that a bit more because she's doing a really good job with this iteration of the character.
I don't know what to say about her character. I guess you've got so many different Catwomen to choose from, and I mean, she's really the only dominant female kind of in the movie to speak of. So it's one of those things where it's like you hope that she hasn't followed a love interest, and I don't think that she did. In that moment in the Gotham Square Gardens, she kind of, her being taken out is what kind of got Batman back on track. Obviously, they worked back and forth together, and I thought given she followed what the character needed, so I think she was efficient in what she did in that role. Would have loved to have seen more from it, but I think for what it was, she brought it wasn't a dead role. She did well doing what she needed to do. So
I think the story put a bit more on the whole, spoiler alert, spoiler cast, her being Falcone's daughter and everything.
Yeah, which I thought was a little weird.
I think the story put a bit more of her character into that, hoping that would be her development, which it is to a degree, but that's we didn't really get a whole lot of other. I know what you mean. There wasn't like a ton of more development for this character that we didn't already know. She's a cat burglar. She steals shit, and she has a thing for Batman. Okay, and she's Falcon's daughter, and she wants to kill him. She was kind of like, very single-minded, but it's also she was very in and out of the movie too. She's in the movie a good bit, but she just shows up here or there. She's like pops in every now and then. So maybe I'd like to think there's more to her, but this just wasn't her movie for us to learn. I mean, we have a Halle Berry movie for that.
Oh God. that was the one thing.
Cosmetics.
Like, I mean, this movie ultimately revolves around Batman. It shows his growth, and his growth influences the people around him, and he's influenced by those people in turn. So I think in that respect, like that's why I say it's not like Zoe Kravitz was just on screen taking up, film stock. She was there doing stuff, but in the grand scheme, she was more not means to an end, but like you say, her look at stuff was kind of straightforward. So
actually, that reminds me a little bit. We'll talk about Paul Dano in a second, but a lot of times the villains are the main characters of a Batman movie. If you ever notice, like Dark Knight, Heath Ledger is the main character. About. Yeah.
Oh, a good villain is more interesting in theory because you've got that element of bad.
Yeah, and I felt that Robert Pattinson's Batman was actually more the main character in this movie than even Paul Dano was. But Paul Dano's Riddler is an interesting character because he is very different than what we know. I mean, the Riddler has always been kind of a psychotic individual that has riddles, and he does kill people. But here he has a very interesting purpose where he's very much of today's setting, where you can tell this movie is very molded into the politics and politicians and kind of the state of affairs for today's society. If you guys agree with me on that or not, but the Riddler's ultimate end game is to kill off these corrupt politicians, including Batman or Bruce Wayne, who is Batman. And then his eventual end game at the end is to flood Gotham to purify its sins or whatever. And then the whole end act, which takes place in an arena, he's all these people. It's basically like you want people go in and murder people and stuff like that. It's like these individuals
shooting fish in a barrel.
It's brainwashing. They're going to shoot the new whale.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's literally shooting
shooting
fish in a barrel.
Yeah. But I love the whole setup of the Riddler's arc where we get him killing these individuals. He kills off Peter Sarsgaard. He kills off Carmine Falcone, who we find out is the rat with wings or whatever. I love that whole kind of concept. But the third act, when it gets to like the arena stuff, I was not a big fan of, just because I felt it was deflated. I felt the end game was deflated on the nature of just how much, I guess because the build-up was so awesome and exciting and fun and creepy and dark and disturbing, that when it gets to like this climactic, you've seen it almost done before, third act, where it's just a bunch of guys shooting a bunch of people or whatever. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I thought Paul Dano, I guess the most important thing is the scariest person is the person that looks most normal in real life. Because if you think about it, like an individual, the people that are shooting and murdering people in a movie theater, they're nuts and crazy, but they don't have like scars and they're not deranged and like messed up looking. They're just normal looking people. And when Paul Dano turns around and you see his face, it's just like, that's kind of scary if you think about it. But what was your guys' overall take on the Riddler character and like the eventual end game and how he ends up, as just a normal dude with a fucked up psychotic, brain or whatever? So what do you guys think?
I like the Riddler. The Riddler has been another one of the Batman villains. He's never been my favorite. I haven't hated him. He's just, I thought Jim Carrey's version of him was fun, but very cartoony and comic book.
Yeah.
But he's never been that threatening to me. I just always viewed him as this guy running around in a green spandex suit, laughing a lot,
making you solve 180 riddles.
Yeah, he was just never very threatening, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. This Riddler, though, is threatening as hell and really menacing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I thought Paul Dano, to me, he is the perfect serial killer, but he could play serial killers for the rest of his career and he'll be successful, because he just You're right. He looks like that everyday guy, but man, he does
Yeah.
the serial killer thing. I mean, look at Prisoners, and which I mean, not to spoil that, but that it's I can't remember the end of that movie. That movie twists around so much. I don't know, but he was a good nut job weirdo serial killer.
Yeah.
But There Will Be Blood. Well, he wasn't a serial killer in that. He was definitely
He
had
gets
some
serial
issues.
killed.
Yeah, and I mean the guy is. He's just a weird he's probably a nice guy in real life, but I mean he's a weird individual on screen, and I thought he was a great pick for the Riddler. And I thought I found it really interesting that the Riddler is the main villain in this movie. We don't see his face until almost the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That third act. That's when I don't think we saw his face until then. And even before then, he shows up. He pops in here or there, but even with his mask on, we only see him a few times. If you added up his screen time, I bet the guy's not on screen for 10 minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah, no.
Out of a 3-hour movie. And I think they did a really good job of making kind of like the Penguin, but even greater so. Even though he's not in the movie a lot, you feel like he is. You feel like he's always there.
Oh yeah.
He's just always there watching, and you never know he's going to pop out of the shadows like Batman and murder somebody or something in some really weird, fucked up way too. Yeah, this is a very disturbing Riddler. I enjoyed it. As far as the end part of the movie, on your comments on that, I can admit that while I loved this movie, I would not be surprised if it came out that the movie ended with the Riddler being caught, and maybe they just have a stinger or something, and that whole third act didn't happen. But maybe the studio said, your Batman movie,
yeah,
you need a big action finale of some sorts. And maybe Reeves was like, okay, they're going to make me do this, because they did have reshoots, and maybe they shot that, because it does, like, that whole and I think that's what makes it seem, that final of the film, seem odd. It is like the rest of the movie flows together and weaves the whole thing as one. Like, there's stuff from the beginning that comes into place in the end and all that. But then after that, that whole last section seems like its own little mini movie. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, okay, I got to do this thing, but how can I do it right? How can I do it and give it some purpose? And that's when he weaved in the whole, Batman, growing as a character. And that's why I think that the ending part actually was very beneficial, because if you took that away at the end of the movie, while it wouldn't have been terrible, Batman himself would not have had any real growth. I mean, I guess maybe the thing with Alfred, he realized, I don't want to lose any, I felt fear again. But beyond that, his growth, as far as we, the viewer, see at least, is in that final portion. And that's a significant thing that happens with him as far as a character and being that Batman. That's a very significant piece of the story. So I don't know if you took that off, because part of me says if you just lopped that off and put that, what we were talking about, that quasi stinger as a stinger, you'd have a great movie still. But then I'm like, would it be as impactful? Because at the end of it, you're like, okay, I see believably how Batman was and how he grew from that and became the Batman that he is now.
Yeah.
Or, that we know more of. So I don't know.
I'd say that the Riddler, he took it down the road that Heath Ledger took the Joker down, because up until this point, I mean, both the Joker and the Riddler, I mean, not to say that they weren't terrifying in their own right, because they were so unhinged, but it was done in such a goofy way. And this took it to a place that was, again, it's grounded. It takes it to that dark, very realistic place of a serial killer, of a person that does not give a fuck. And they're intelligent about how they do it. It's focused chaos in what they do.
Yeah, because I think the biggest thing between like the Riddler and the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, is Riddler has a purpose. Like, he has his reason for why he's doing it. I don't think Heath Ledger's Joker actually had a purpose. He just wanted to cause destruction, and
his purpose was chaos. That's as good of a purpose as anything.
He wanted the world to burn.
Exactly.
He just wanted it all to burn down.
Yeah.
On the Riddler, I got a question, and this is, since we're talking spoilers, of course. When they finally catch the Riddler, and he requests Batman come talk to him, Batman goes and talks to him, and we're starting to kind of get the idea that, hey, I think the Riddler knows who Batman is, or he
Mhm.
knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. He goes in there and he says, Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne. And then he goes in that whole thing about, the Wayne Foundation and all that. I was conflicted. I am still conflicted a bit. Do you think that he knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman and he was doing that to tell Batman, I know who you are, but I'm going to keep it a secret for you because there's a camera watching. I'm going to like say that name. So everybody's like, what? And you're like, oh, fuck. And then I'm going to go into talking about Bruce Wayne, keep it under wraps. Or do you think that that was the filmmakers trying to make us think that he knew that he was Bruce Wayne, and then he went into talking about Bruce Wayne and the Wayne Foundation and all that? I was really, because at first that's what I thought it was. And then I was like, does he? I don't know. Does he know? I'm not really sure.
Well, there is a picture of him staring at Bruce Wayne in his loft, and he has Batman right next to Bruce Wayne, so he may know.
See, I think that they're trying to misguide
all the filmmakers trying to make us think that. I don't know.
Could have been misdirect, yeah.
I think it was a misdirect because at that moment, like, Batman is trying to figure stuff out as it is, like looking around because he sees everything.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that could be taken as you think about where he's at, he's only 2 years in, he's still learning the trade and stuff, learning to not overanalyze. And that that was kind of how I took it. Because, yeah, I do think that the filmmakers were trying to go for a misdirect, because I was going back and forth with that too. But the more I thought about it, that's kind of where my head went, because we do have a lot of villains that know who the good guy is.
Well, that, and I guess he did say, and it seemed genuine, that he wanted to bring himself and Batman together because he saw them as the same. So he wanted that moment. He said, I've been waiting for this moment to meet you. We come together and our master plan came together. He wanted that moment. But, a few scenes early, like an hour and a half earlier, he tried to kill Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And
right.
Alfred was the one accidentally who opened the letter. But had Bruce Wayne opened that, it probably would have killed him. So I'm like, if he truly did want to meet him, I don't think he would have tried to kill him. I don't know.
Well, or he would have exposed him the way that he would have exposed, like, the mayor and everybody else. Like, he threw all of their dirty laundry out there. And if that was the case, I think he would have done that with Batman as well.
Yeah. Kind of moving along a little bit, because I know we're almost short on time because it's getting close to when we stop recording. Robert Pattinson as Batman has always been a little problematic in this situation. People didn't want him to be Batman, but as we've talked before, Jacob and Triv, we were talking about before recording, you got to give the guy a chance to be a fucking Batman, to do his thing. Let the movie play before you start making fucking assumptions, because this happens over and 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 over. I mean, any movie with a superhero, people are just like automatically going, fuck this guy, I mean, I know he was in Twilight, but as Jacob knows, Triv, as well, he's done like an amazing group of indie films, smaller films like The Lighthouse and Good Times and all that shit. And then High Life, which I haven't seen, but I heard really good. But the question I have, I gotta watch it. But the question I have is, we have him working with Jim Gordon throughout this entire movie. Pretty much most of the movie is him and Jim Gordon working as a detective duo group. And I think we all can agree Robert Pattinson, like we said, knocked it out of the park. I'm pretty safe to say Jeffrey Wright knocked it out of the park. But what did you guys think of that aspect of that movie? And then I'll even lump in this. The action sequences in this movie are pretty top notch. They're pretty crazy. They're not what I would call Avenger level of action sequences. They're actually more realistic, outside of the Batmobile being able to crush through like concrete cylinder blocks and shit.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently.
I believe.
Yes, me too.
I believe it can.
What about all the bullets that Batman could take? I mean, damn.
Yeah, especially up close shotgun and shit. But
when he was coming out of the elevator, like, there's just like the only thing that lit the scene was the gunfire. Like, holy shit.
Man,
yeah,
I wanted to mention that in my review, and I forgot. I was thinking while I was watching that, and Nick will appreciate this. Well, he might hate it, but there was a movie earlier this year that came out. Well, was it earlier? No, it was later last year. That came out that tried a similar thing in a scene, and it was probably one of the better scenes, technically at least, in said film. But I was thinking the whole time, I was like, this is how you do that. This is how you do it. How like the only thing lighting the scene is the gunfire, and you just get flashes, and that's how you see what's going on in the scene in a really creative way. Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City tried it. Much like everything else in that film, in my opinion, failed. I know Nick has a different opinion on that, but this Resident Evil, watch the Batman, that's how you fucking do it. Because the whole time, they're shooting point blank if like a foot away with a heavy assault rifle, and he's just like, fuck off. But you know what? I don't care. I was like, hell yeah, this guy's fucking brutally badass.
Well, that's the funny thing about this movie is, and I was thinking of Equilibrium, the Christian Bale movie. I think they do a similar sequence with just like darkness, which I don't know, Trev, if you've seen Equilibrium, but it's an awesome. It's a early awesome like, Matrix. Matrix action film.
Yeah, you told me about that.
It's so good. Okay. It's out there, but you'll like it. You'll like it.
Yeah.
Nice.
But so Batman, the main story is Batman, Jim Gordon. The police are. It's funny to watch the police in this, but there's some really like heady, really dark and crazy action sequences, or even crazy set pieces where we go from the very opening of the film, which is Robert Pattinson doing Rorschach, talking about how the city is scared of him. He could be in any form or fashion. That they look in, like we see him in the shadows, just kind of the criminals in the shadows, realizing that Batman can be there because he literally walks out of the shadows in that guy where we saw the trailer. But then you get stuff like the Peter Sarsgaard scene in the church with the whole idea of him with the salt, because there's a couple salt traps in this movie, which I laughed a lot about.
Those were awesome.
But then you get the high octane, probably one of the best Batman, probably one of the, to me personally, this is up there with like Bullet, those like chase sequences where Batman is, we see the fucking awesome ass Batmobile, like muscle car, and he's chasing after the Penguin, and you get this like
and
crazy.
How about that Batmobile reveal, man?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that was the coolest Batmobile reveal. It starts, you're like, it's here, and it's just sitting there like, whoa, whoa, and it's like you hear, you're like, oh fuck yeah, and it waits forever. You're just like, just go.
And the best part is that scene in the trailer with the Penguin in the rain. The penguin, it just slowly moves on the Penguin. He's like his eyes are going wide, and he realizes what the fuck's happening. And it's just like, you know, as the movie just plays along like that. I think that scene is my favorite, just from the simple fact that it's hardcore, it's action, it's, you know, getting away from the darkness and just being fun. And it just has a great, it's like a lot of times they'll have these villains that show up in movies, like especially comic book movies, and they're like underutilized. And I feel like the Penguin, who's very smallish part in this movie, he has a lot of, but he's in it, and he has this like great action sequence. And it's like, I mean, what did you guys think of not only Batman and Jim Gordon working together, but just the action sequences in general? Like, is there one that was your favorite? Was there one that you think was most impactful? Like I said, he walks into like the Arkham Gotham
hospital,
the orphanage or whatever.
Oh, that.
And
the orphanage.
Yeah.
No, that's the Wayne. Oh, it used to be his house.
Oh, was
I can't remember what they call it now.
It was called it was just the Gotham Orphanage is what it was called.
Yeah,
because it was Wayne Manor, but they moved out of it and donated it to the city, and they made it an orphanage.
And
they moved to a tower downtown, and that's why Paul Dano was always, or the Riddler was saying, let's not worry about Bruce Wayne. He's an orphan too, and I'm living in his shadow, literally in his fucking house.
I will also say I loved the fact that they showed that there's actually traffic in Gotham. You know, you're running across like all these vehicles. Yeah, exactly. It's not just like a town without people. I mean, they were busting into shit, and there was semis, and even before the giant explosion.
That's the thing I loved, is the simple fact that, unlike, you know, in the Batman Begins, when he's just jumping off rooftops in a gigantic tank-like vehicle, this one's on a road, and Batman's having to struggle to get around vehicles, and even the Penguin's having to struggle to get around vehicles. And yes,
all been there.
I loved it because what you said exactly, because it's a muscle car that he built, and apparently he's been built. Now this is like
it showed him going through
the movie. Yeah, he like built. Apparently, the prequels talks about how he's been building it for years or something like that. But it's a muscle car. It's built. It's based on a 1970s Dodge Charger with a Ford V10 engine in it. By the way, that's whatever. We're not gonna get there. We're not talking like car talk here. But it's a fucking muscle car. Old OG 70s muscle cars were not for turning. You could turn in them, obviously, but they were for going straight. You go
And straight
straight
through
really
things.
fucking fast.
Yeah.
And that's what this car does. Whenever he's got to like turn and like make maneuvers and stuff, he's like skidding out and like busting into things. And just, I love that. The fucking action scenes, including the car chase, the fist fights, all of it was just brutally just hardcore. And like you felt every fucking hit. Every time he punched somebody, it was like boom, like that. And like the car crashes were like, you felt them. And it was just like, fuck yes, this is like
well, the one of the coolest scenes in the movie is the Batmobile. You actually stop on the camera stops on the Batmobile's tires, and all of a sudden you see fucking Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin's car start flipping. And like, holy shit, like
that
kind of
motherfucker
shit
is dancing. It's just like fucking dancing across the road. It's like, God, he's dead.
Yeah. Airbags didn't deploy or anything.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I was gonna say no airbags or anything. It's a hell of a seatbelt, but it's that 5-point harness, but whatever.
Yeah. I think he was driving a Maserati. I think if I saw I saw that logo, but maybe not. The Penguin.
But that's what makes this movie like so unique from other Batman movies. Is other Batman movies had like over the top and silly vehicles, which I don't discredit, like the Michael Keaton Batmobile, which is awesome. We can throw the Joel Schumacher Batmobiles out the window. What's that?
The Michael Keaton Batman, Tim Burton Batmobile is based on a Corvette, Stingray Corvette.
You know what? That's what Bruce Wayne showed up to the memorial service too. Was a Corvette.
Was it?
It was a 56. I remember. Yeah, it's the less traditional style Corvette that we think of. It's the more flat front OG Corvettes, like OG. But yeah, he was in a Corvette in that. Good eye, Triv.
What can I say?
Yeah. But that's the funny thing about Batman in general and Bruce Wayne in this movie. You always knew Bruce Wayne was a smart guy, a guy with intellect, a guy that could decipher shit. That's what he's been. He's a detective. He knows things. He's the smartest guy in the room, basically, as we see during the opening police thing. But the thing that makes it so unique in this movie is when he's talking to Peter Sarsgaard, who's has the tape wrapped around his whatever, and he has the phone, and he's talking to the Riddler, and the Riddler's asking Riddler questions, and Peter Sarsgaard's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Can you repeat that?" And Batman goes, "It's blah blah blah." That's the shit that you want in a Batman movie. To know he's the smartest guy, the fact that he walks into the police murder scene or whatever crime scene, he's just staring around. He's not talking. He's looking around. Yes, his eye is video capturing footage, which I thought that was a pretty cool effect. But literally throughout the entire movie, he doesn't speak. He just looks around and investigating, and he. Like, that's what I want. I love the swagger and suave of Michael Keaton and even Christian Bale to an extent, but you gotta have like equalization of a Batman character, and it's always been either one or the other, and I thought this worked perfectly. So,
and this was genuinely funny. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, you're right, it was. But what I was gonna say is, I like that he wasn't always right.
Yeah,
he was the smartest guy in the room, and he was like doing some shit that was like, yes, that's the detective work I want. But then there were some a couple of times he was wrong.
Yeah.
The Penguin says, "You're speaking some terrible Spanish."
Yeah, there were some times that he had it wrong, and I like that. It shows that he's not perfect. We're so used to nowadays our superheroes are. The only reason they get something wrong is because they don't have all the information. He had the information. He just fucked up and got it wrong once or twice. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I like it. He needs to be right most of the time, or then you're just a fuck up. But I like that he got it wrong a couple of times. That made him seem more believable and more real.
It's a movie that really attempts to be methodical. Like I said in my review, it's a methodical movie that really takes its time. Yes, it's 3 hours long, and I think we can all agree that maybe 3 hours is a little longer than it needs to be, because they could tighten up some stuff here or there.
Yeah, that's true of any movie, though. Honestly, I don't know about you guys, but it didn't feel 3 hours to me. There wasn't a time where I looked at my watch and went, "Well, when is this over?"
No, I was, to not sound cliched, I was riveted the entire time. I love when it comes to 3-hour long movies, there are very few. I'll watch them and I can sit through them and I can love a 3-hour movie, but there's very few 3-hour long movies that there's not at least a point where I'm just like, okay, maybe right now is where I can just kind of get a couple of winks. But no, this one I was like glued the whole time.
Right. And with that said, I mean, overall, the movie it has a lot to say. It's doing a lot. It's setting up an entire world in 3 hours that you have to make cohesive in its narrative. But with that said, I know we have to kind of end here soon. Did you guys have any like closing thoughts you wanted to talk about with this film? Anything that, because we could spend 6 hours talking about this film, to be fairly honest. We could spend 6 hours on each character talking about this film. But was there any kind of, closing thoughts you guys wanted to talk about with this film and kind of its, overall impact, I guess?
Well, we can't be a spoiler cast if we don't talk about that post-credit scene that's not post-credit.
The one that people kept asking me, I'm like, there is something there, but it's not really a post-credit scene.
Yeah. The thing that probably most people are going to tune into a spoiler. Yeah. The thing people are going to tune into a hear about the reveal, kind of, sort of. I mean, it's probably the Joker. Pretty damn sure it's the Joker.
It ain't Harley Quinn, I'll tell you that.
It's the Irishman guy from Eternals. That's who it is. Because it's the same guy, Barry Keoghan.
Nice.
But you don't really, I mean, I guess you kind of see him through like, you see this of him.
Yeah.
Well, and it's silhouetted against the sunset,
and
too.
He's a priest.
Yeah. But like, and I knew who, as soon as he started talking, I was like, that's the Joker. But everybody's been talking about, hey, I think the Joker's teased at some point. And I was like, yeah, there he is. And then I was like, I wonder if they're going to give it away or if they're just going to kind of leave people really dangling. But no, I was just waiting on, because he kept on asking the Riddler these questions and riddles and stuff. And I was like, I'm waiting on him to ask something to where he can respond something like, it's just a big joke or something like that. And while that would have been like kind of the moment the theater went, oh, and all that, like, honestly, I'm happy they didn't do that. It stayed consistent with the tone and the way the rest of the movie went, where they're saying, this is those characters you know and love, but we're not going to go down that road. We're going to take the higher road. They never make a Joker reference. The closest thing they come to the Joker-esque is when he starts to laugh, but it's really him and Riddler just kind of like crazy laughing, and they're like, he's like, I mean, it's
dude, that Riddler,
that's the fucking Joker.
That Riddler crying was unnerving. Was like, I was like, this is kind of creepy.
It's like that thing, like a fucking moose in heat. Yeah,
they did when those two were talking at the end. There was mention of a clown, like he's not clowning around or something along those lines. So
I mean, it's worse things than being a clown.
Yeah,
that's the only bad. That's before. I'm sorry. Before that's the only bad thing about the Batmans. They always want the Joker. I'm still waiting for a cool Mr. Freeze. Or maybe a cool Two-Face. That's not
there's
Tommy
so
Lee
many
Jones.
great villains.
Though they reference, there is a guy that looks like Two-Face or young Two-Face.
We have gotten a cool Mr. Freeze before. He was just a really bad movie. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the best part of that movie.
True.
Actually, I wonder if they could put Mr. Freeze in this universe. I wonder if it'd be impossible.
And there's always a way to do it right. Like, you change the blocks around and stuff and still have the essence of the character there. It's just doing it right.
Right.
I mean, look at what they
this
did.
Catwoman's not walking around licking herself and being like, perfect.
That's a sequel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even with Anne Hathaway, the way that they did the way the tech flipped down to be glasses and flipped up to be ears. I mean, like they did. There are ways to do it. It's just whether it's done well or not. So
and she had the whip, so.
Well, yeah, duh.
And her little.
Oh yeah,
dollar store mask that she had, it did kind of ear up.
Yeah.
I like the mask though. She's supposed to be broke as fuck, so I mean, she's not gonna have some like super high tech mask or anything. I mean, I don't know how she's apparently a bad thief if she's knocking off all these big places, but she ain't got no damn money. What are you doing? But whatever.
Yeah, she spent it on upgrading her equipment. I mean, look at the stuff she used to break into the safe.
She got a cat suit.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I guess so.
And the wigs, I mean, wig costs alone. If you want some quality wigs, I mean, you got to pony up for that.
Yeah.
So
this is why she was working at the Iceberg Lounge.
Yeah, basically.
No, I thought it was funny. Like they kiss and it goes, and that has been an endorsement from Thomas Wayne. I guess they're laughing. Thought that was kind of a funny
Yeah.
joke.
But that's the thing. There's a lot of those moments that are just like, they're not like quippy and stuff, but they're they
funny.
break the tension, but not in a bad way. They kind of flow in conversation.
It
And the way
doesn't
that-
Marvel. It doesn't MCU comedy it. It
Right.
doesn't take like a moment of like some heart and then throw in some
not Thor
slapstick
in it.
goofy ass
Yeah.
joke. Yeah, it's and I like Thor Ragnarok, but it doesn't take
Yeah.
like a truly like heartfelt moment or something and just ruin the tension by throwing in some bullshit comedy. There's comedy in it, but where it's at, it makes sense, and it's not like it's like yeah, that was funny.
I see what you did there. Kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so closing thoughts. Overall impact, how you guys feel overall? I know you guys say you guys really liked it, but like, do you guys have any other things you want to say on the matter before we end the actual spoiler cast?
I appreciated the fact that, and I know that that last bit was kind of tacked on, but so many, like, at least, and again, comparing Marvel and DC, you can't do that. But I appreciated the fact that they went for full city destruction. Like there wasn't monologuing. It was, everything that was going on. You hear the end of it, and all of a sudden everything goes to hell and everything starts flooding. I
No giant
appreciated
space creature.
Yeah, I appreciated the fact that they
No
let shit
Lights
happen.
beam.
Yeah, exactly. Space anus.
Skybeam.
Yeah.
Or devil's anus, yeah. But and I guess they did that in Dark Knight Rises. For whatever you think of that movie, one way or the other, they put the whole island city thing in jeopardy, and they put people in genuine jeopardy without being able to do anything to help them. And I appreciated that they had the balls to do that. Like, they didn't stop. They kept the pedal down and just kept going forward.
Right.
And I did we've talked about the ending sequence and how it could possibly, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a reshoot, because it does seem so distant from everything else in the film. Not in a bad way. I mean, it was good, but when you put it all together, it's kind of like, this almost seems like the beginning of the sequel or so, and I could absolutely see the studio being like, dude, you had some cool action in this movie, but you ended on, they caught the bad guy and all the stuff's out there, because that's the kind of movie this was. This was not a big bombastic ending kind of movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if it had that kind of somber ending of, okay, we caught the bad guy, the even worse bad guy is dead, all the dirty laundry's out there, movie's over. And they said, do this instead, add this to it. But I really liked how they depicted Batman's growth there. That was what saved it for me. All the action stuff and the stuff with the Riddler guys and all that. Yeah, it was neat. It was fun. I mean, I was entertained. I had a good time with it. But it was the payoff after that when he jumps up there and he risks his life for the city, for the better of the city, and cuts the thing with his cool chest battering
Yeah,
thing.
that was awesome.
And he falls down, and then he gets up and he starts. It's at that point when I saw that as the turning point for him, where I'm not doing all this time. He's been doing this. He's been Batman for him. He's solving crimes that have happened to other people. He's helping people, but that's more of a byproduct of him just getting this out of his system and having a place to focus his rage. It's all about him. After that point, that's when he says, this is not about me now. I just had my ass kicked and I'm just done. But I'm going to give it my last little bit, but not for me, for them and for the city and for the people of the city. And after that, and he goes and he says to people, I saw it really as, that's when he realized, this is my purpose. My purpose before was, I don't know, am I making a difference? Who knows? But I'm going to go out here and keep on kicking the shit out of these motherfuckers because I hate them. Now his purpose is to make this city better, to make his home a better place, and to protect the people of Gotham City. And that, I think they did a really good job of showing us that growth there at the end. And that right there is what sold it all. You could have kept all that other action shit. It was fine. I enjoyed it. Like I said.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't had that, we just had that type of growth there, that is what absolutely sold that last part for me, and what made it worth that extra, what was that, like 30 minutes or so?
I would agree.
And that last third, that's what, up to that point, right before that point when he was just getting his ass kicked on the catwalk and everything, I was like, yeah, this is cool. I don't see where it's going, but it's cool. And it's like, oh, that's where it's going. Okay, I'm good with this. Makes sense. And I thought the scenes of him like airlifting the woman out, was a woman. I think it was a woman.
Woman.
And they like grab his hand because they don't want him to let it go. And he's like has that moment with them. I was like, it's a little thing, but I was like, that's really cool. It shows that, he cares about these people, not just him. Before, I don't even know if he saw the people. Now he sees them and they see him and they accept him as their, their protector in the city. And I just really liked all of that.
Yeah.
What's kind of really cool about that moment is a lot of Batman movies, you don't see Batman carrying people to the National Guard. He usually like flies off and just, I'm Batman. And like you see him like in the police station running down a hall.
Swear to me.
He'd be like, he was throwing smoke on the ground and flying through the window because there usually be a window in the police station. And here he's just like running down the background looking for an escape. And that's when this is a more realistic Batman, because there are limitations to what he can do, and you see him picking up people and taking them over to help people. That's why I like, that's where I'll end it. But I'm sorry if Trev, you're gonna say something.
Oh no, I think that I don't really have a whole lot to add beyond that, so I think we're good.
Yeah, it's overall, in the final kind of say for this spoiler cast, this is a movie that has higher stakes. It's a movie with a lot of interesting concepts, theories, ideas. It's a movie that is about a character that is definitely flawed and makes mistakes, and it has individuals who could be realistic individuals. And honestly, I mean, you could see a Riddler like character doing these types of things. I don't know if it goes to the extent of putting a rat box on a guy's head or
why not? It could be fun. That's like a Friday night,
Yeah, right. But I think that's where I stand. I think it's a movie that is actually, I feel, more realistic than even the Dark Knight trilogy was. Because I'm sorry, but that tank, as cool as it is, that tank could, I don't know, that tank, whatever that thing was.
Oh, what is it? The Rumbler?
The Tumbler.
Yeah, the Tumbler
was cool and it fit in that world. But even the Nolan world was still a bit comic booky. This one was far more grounded. I mean, there's a couple of things, but as a whole, 90% of it is like, I mean, that could happen. I could see that. And there's a few
feels
things,
lived in.
But Zodiac Killer and fucking Ted Kaczynski is what this Riddler was going for. So if you think about it a little bit, so
just the lack of limits on him was what made it like. He didn't do anything half-assed. He didn't do anything for a laugh. He did everything, like we said, with a purpose, and it was balls to the walls with everything he did. He was thorough, meticulous. He just did it. Exactly.
All right. So once again, that is our, or I should say, Movie Emporium spoiler cast for the Batman. But it's really the Fifth Dimension presents Batman spoiler cast. I'm just gonna go with that because we're all part of the same group. So, anyways, as usual. Triv, Jacob, thank you for coming on to my channel to record a spoiler cast and stuff like that. Like I said, once again, we could talk for 6 hours. You kind of have to condense it down a little bit. So there's stuff we missed. I apologize, but as you know, this movie is very, very intense for what it is. So with that said, as I always do in our podcast, Jacob, when they want to throw batarangs at you or pull the batarang off your chest, where can they find you?
Well, don't throw none of that shit at me because I'll throw it back. But you can find me at I've got one over there. You can find me at Jacob Anders Reviews on YouTube and at Red Neville 2 on Twitter. And check out my review of the Batman that just dropped as of the recording of this video today or this morning.
Yes, and it's very good. I've watched it. It's very good. So. And Triv, I always make fun of you. I always joke, Uranus and stuff like that with cups of whatnot. If you watch our podcast, you'll know what that is. But if they want to find out your content, if they want to, send you, Catwoman suits or stuff like that, where can they find your content?
You can make those. You can send those to Movie Emporium because I think Nick would probably look better in a leather suit than I would.
I want to see that.
You can find me here on YouTube at Trivial Theater. I do a wide variety of random, obscure, and straight up bad movies. Have a few superhero movies in my repertoire, but nothing as of late, except for Abraham Lincoln, who managed to take out some zombies, which was a collab with Nick. You can also find me on Twitter at trivia_check.
Yeah, and also Jacob, I know you do a whole wide range comic book series that you're doing right now. It's going to take you about 3 years to do. So
probably more than that, but yeah, I am doing a comic book movie review list where I took a little bit of time off from it, but starting next week it'll be back where I review one comic book movie every week. And as I just started in the 66 with Batman 66, and I'm going to work my way all the way up to the new movies. And I guess technically this review I just did falls in that that series, but it's
Yeah.
not next in line. Next in line is
Red Sonja.
not She-Ra. Yeah, Red Sonja. See, she
Red
knows better
Sonja.
than I do.
I'm
Yeah.
good at what I know.
Hey, I forgot I did Supergirl. I was sitting there like, okay, I need to do Supergirl too. And then I saw a comment, somebody commented on Supergirl. I was like, oh, I already reviewed that. Like not that long ago too. And I was like, man, where the hell's my head been? But anyway.
But yeah, so definitely check out both their channels as usual. They're awesome. They do great content. And you can reach me at Movie Emporium, Twitter Movie Emporium. I did post my review for Batman, so definitely check it out there. It is non-spoiler if you're interested. But other than that, once again, thank you to everyone who watched this pretty well, somewhat in-depth explanation of what we thought about the Batman. And we'll see you in the next Bat time and same Bat place. Peace out, guys.
Bye.
I am vengeance.